Good evening. We are certainly glad that you are here tonight. What I hold in my hand tonight is a simple brick, smooth on all sides and black in color. To some, this brick would seem insignificant, and in many ways would be insignificant unless it was combined with additional bricks for a significant purpose. The earliest bricks date back to 7000 BC. Original bricks were made from mud, some from mud and straw, some were dried from the sun, and later some were dried by fire. Up until 1885, all bricks were handmade. Then came 1920, which ushered in new brick-making machines that could produce 12,000 bricks a day. Bricks have been discovered in many different locations around the world. The Romans used brick to build forts and vaults. France, Germany, and Poland started using bricks in the 11th and 12th centuries. America built its first brick house in 1611, and then brick was used to build many of the skyscrapers in New York City. It is estimated that it took over 10 million bricks to build the Empire State Building. In 1915, the first brick was laid to create a road called the Dixie Highway. Author John Gray writes that the Dixie Highway was built to connect the Midwest to the South. The Dixie Highway would provide a road for travelers that stretched from Michigan to not so sunny Florida right now. Up until this time, the highway did exist, but it was primarily made up of unimproved dirt roads. The first brick for the highway was laid on September 15th, 1915. It was laid with much fanfare. A holiday was declared and the school was canceled for the day. A young lady was crowned Dixie Queen, and she sat atop a float waving to the crowd during a parade. The designer of the highway and the governor commemorated the event by placing the first brick on the dusty dirt road. Governor Samuel Ralston proclaimed that in 100 years, they would look back on this occasion with gratitude and pride. One brick, when combined with additional bricks and for a significant purpose, can connect the world and can change the world. The year was 1980, and the idea was developed to connect individuals to Tabernacle Christian School. Individuals who, when connected to others individuals, provided significant resources for the students. Resources that might seem insignificant, but when combined with additional resources for a significant purpose, could and would one day change the world. The concept was thought out, well planned, and given a name: the Century Club. The Century Club consisted of many individuals who contributed $10 a month for the time span of 1 year. Century Club members purchased typewriters for the students and even purchased the first computer the school ever owned, the TI-99, complete with a floppy disk drive. In the following years, the Century Club purchased desks, chairs, tables, buses, athletic equipment, and science equipment. To some, the donations seemed small and maybe even insignificant, but when the donations were combined with other donations for a specific purpose, much was accomplished. The name eventually changed from Century Club to Eagle Club, and that is what we celebrate tonight. Eagle Club members have increased in number, and the donations have had a significant impact on the students at Tabernacle Christian School. The card that you were given tonight gives detailed information about the different contribution levels. Filling out the card and returning it will indicate your donation to Tabernacle Christian School. We are thankful for the members at all levels. Time does not permit a detailed explanation of all levels, but if you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask me during intermission or at the end of the event. Each level is unique, and contributing to the Eagle Scholarship Fund will return a 50% state tax credit to the donor. Tonight is a night we highlight all of our students but the spotlight is intended to shine brightest on our senior class. Tonight is also a night we have set aside to say thank you to our Eagle Club members and encourage others to become members. Over the span of the last 3 years, Eagle Club members have given over $100,000 to our new Don Nations academic wing. The original concept was introduced several years ago at Eagle Club. The design went through many revisions. What started out as a 2-story building has turned into a 14-classroom masterpiece, and tonight we say thank you for your contributions and prayers. The hallway that connects the building to the Don Nations academic wing was designed to pay tribute to our Eagle Club members. Last year, several Eagle Club members purchased bricks. Our goal and our vision is to complete the brick hallway in the next 3 years. The brick hallway is composed of over 700 bricks and will be complete when all the maroon bricks have been replaced with black bricks. Each black brick represents $1,000 in donations. Starting tonight, for every $1,000 that comes in through the school, through the church, or any other type of donation, a black brick will replace a maroon brick. If you purchase a brick, your message or name can also be inscribed on the brick display on the wall. Inscriptions of Bible verses, words of support, and encouragement are already on display. The messages let everyone know that it is more than a brick. It's a connection to the past and a path to the future. The money raised tonight will be used to finish up paying for the building and to purchase a bus this summer. One brick, when combined with additional bricks for a significant purpose, can certainly make an impact. Here is a little bit of history. The first brick placed in the Dixie Highway was used to make a significant connection. The connection would later become Highway 37 and Interstate 69. The first brick placed on that dusty dirt road was placed in Martinsville, Indiana. The highway has changed the way we travel. The interstate has made a significant impact. Tonight, you have the opportunity to place a brick in the connector and make a significant difference for the students at Tabernacle Christian School. Governor Ralston was right when he said that people would look back in 100 years with gratitude and pride. One brick placed in a dirt road on September 15th changed the way we travel forever. This year marks the 50th year of Christian education at Tabernacle Christian School. We look back with gratitude and thankfulness for what God has accomplished. Place a brick tonight and see how God will use its impact the next 50 years. At this time, I'm going to ask the ushers to come forward. As you came in, you could have picked up a membership card. If you did not, it's not too late. You can pick one up later. But we just ask that you fill out the membership card, put it in the envelope. If you're interested in making a donation or purchasing a brick, we'll collect these. We'll go through them. If you have questions, you can see me during intermission, or you can see me after the event. But we do want to thank you for your support. We thank you for your encouragement, and we thank you for your prayers.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tabernacle Christian School. We are delighted you have joined us during our school's 50th year. Please take your seat and turn your attention to the stage as the senior class of TCM presents Anne of Green Gables.
Chapter 1, Mrs. Rachel Lynde is surprised. How shall I describe Rachel Lynde? Ah, yes. She's a very capable creature, one who could handle her own concerns as well as those of other folks on the bargain. Nothing escaped her all-seeing eye, which is why, on this sunny afternoon in early June, she noticed something very peculiar from her kitchen window.
Why, is that Matthew Cuthbert I see, driving his buggy out of town? And in his best suit, too? Where is he off to, I wonder? He doesn't generally go to town this time of year, and he never visits. He wasn't driving fast enough for a doctor, yet something must have happened to start him off. I'm clean puzzled, that's what. I'll just go over to Green Gables and find out from his sister where he's gone and why. I won't have a moment's peace until I know what has taken Matthew Cuthbert out of Avonlea today.
Rachel Lynde did not have far to go. Green Gables was just barely a quarter-mile up the road from Lynde's Hollow. While all the other Avonlea houses were situated along the main road, the Cuthbert house was built far from it, which is why, in Mrs. Rachel Lynde's esteemed opinion, Matthew and Marilla were both a bit odd. They had trees as their only company. 20 minutes later, Rachel Lynde stood huffing and puffing at the Cuthbert's doorstep.
Good afternoon, Rachel.
Good afternoon, Marilla.
It's a real fine afternoon, isn't it? Won't you sit down? How are all your folks?
Well, we're all pretty well, thanks. I was kind of afraid you weren't, though, when I saw your brother Matthew heading out today.
Oh no, I'm quite all right, although I had a bad headache yesterday. Would you like some tea?
No, thank you, Rachel. But you're all feeling fine then?
Yes, thank you for your concern.
So Matthew left on some other errand.
Matthew went to Bright River today.
Oh?
We're getting a little boy from an orphanage in Nova Scotia. He's coming on the train tonight.
Are you serious, Marilla?
Why, yes, of course.
What on earth put such a notion into your head?
Well, we've been thinking about it for some time. Matthew is getting up there in years. He's 60 and his heart troubles him a good deal.
But a boy from an orphanage? Honestly, Marilla.
Rachel, you know how hard it is to get hired help. Mrs. Spencer decided to get a little girl from the orphanage, so we asked her to pick out a boy of about 10 or 11, old enough to do chores and young enough to train up good and proper. We plan to give him a good home and schooling.
Well, I never.
A telegram announced his arrival on the 5:30 train, so Matthew went to Bright River to meet him.
Marilla, I'll tell you plain that I think you're doing a mighty foolish thing. Bringing a strange child into your home, and you don't know a single thing about him. Why, just last week, I read of an orphan boy who set fire to a house at night, set it on purpose, Marilla, and nearly burnt them all to a crisp in their beds.
I've had qualms myself, Rachel, but it's so seldom Matthew sets his mind on anything. And as for risks, why, there's risks in having children of your own. They don't always turn out well.
Well, don't say I didn't warn you, Marilla. If he burns Green Gables down or poisons the well, why, I read of a case where an orphan did just that. The whole family died in fearful agonies. Only, it was a girl in that instance.
Well, we're not getting a girl. I'd never dream of bringing up a girl.
Marilla, I hope it turns out all right. I must be going. Good day.
Good day, Rachel.
Rachel Lynde would have stayed to inspect the orphan, but 2 hours seemed like such a long wait. Instead, she went up the road to tell the neighbors the news. Her news would make a sensation, and Mrs. Rachel Lynde dearly loved to cause a sensation.
Excuse me, will the 5:30 train be along soon?
The 5:30 train been gone about a half hour ago. I was just locking up, actually. There was a passenger dropped off for you, though. A little girl. I told her she could sit inside, but she insisted she stay outside. More scope for the imagination, she claimed. She's a case, I'd say.
I'm not expecting a girl. It's a boy I've come for. Mrs. Spencer was to bring him over from Nova Scotia.
Well, Miss Spencer got off the train with that little girl and gave her into my charge. She said you'd be along presently.
I don't understand.
I dare say you could ask her. She's got a tongue of her own, that's for sure. Maybe they're out of the boys of the brand you wanted. Good day, sir.
I suppose you're Mr. Matthew Cuthbert of Green Gables? I'm very glad to see you. I was afraid you weren't coming, imagining all the things that might have happened to prevent you.
I'm sorry I was late. Here, give me your bag.
Oh, I can carry it. I've got all my worldly goods in it. I'm so glad you've come. It seems so wonderful I'm going to live with you and belong to you. I've never belonged to anybody. Not really. The orphanage was the worst. There's so little scope for imagination in an orphanage. Why, Mr. Cuthbert, isn't that beautiful?
You mean that cherry tree?
Yes, with the blooms all white and lacy.
Well, I don't know.
Why? A bride, of course, all in white with a lovely misty veil. I've never seen one, but I can imagine what she would look like. I don't expect that I'll ever be a bride. I'm too homely, but I do hope someday I shall have a beautiful dress. It is my highest ideal of earthly bliss. I've never had a pretty dress in my life. Prince Edward Island is the bloomiest place. I love it here already. I used to imagine I was living here, but never expected that I would. It's wonderful when your imaginations come true, isn't it?
Well, I guess so.
Am I talking too much? People are always saying that I do. Would you rather I didn't talk? I can stop if I make up my mind to do it, although it's difficult.
You can talk as much as you'd like. I don't mind.
Oh, I'm glad. I know that you and I would get along together fine. Just now, I feel nearly perfectly happy. I can't feel exactly happy because, well, what color would you call this?
It's red, isn't it?
Yes. Now you see why I can't be perfectly happy. I can imagine away my freckles, green eyes, and skinniness, but I can't imagine my red hair away. It'll be my lifetime sorrow. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to be divinely beautiful?
Well, no, I haven't.
If you had the choice, would you be divinely beautiful, dazzling clever, or angelically good?
Well, I don't know exactly.
Neither do I. I can never decide. One thing's certain, I'll never be angelically good.
Well, we had better be going. Marilla will be waiting.
Oh, it feels as if I'm in a dream. I've pinched myself so many times today to see if it's real, but it is, and I'm very nearly home.
Matthew Cuthbert, who is that? Where's the boy?
There wasn't any boy. Mrs. Spencer just brought her.
No boy, but there must have been a boy. We sent word for Mrs. Spencer to bring a boy.
Well, she didn't. She brought her.
Well, this is a pretty piece of business.
You don't want me? You don't want me because I'm not a boy? I should have expected it. Nobody ever did want me.
Well, there's no need to cry so about it.
You'd cry too if you came to a place you thought was going to be home and then found out they don't want you because you're not a boy. Oh, this is the most tragical thing that ever did happen to me.
Well, don't cry anymore. You'll have to stay here while we investigate this matter. Now, what's your name?
Will you please call me Cordelia?
Call you Cordelia? Is that your name?
It's not exactly my name.
I don't know what on earth you mean, child. If Cordelia isn't your name, then what is?
Anne Shirley. Oh, but please do call me Cordelia. It's such a romantic name.
Well, what's wrong with the name you have?
It's such an unromantic name.
What? What's wrong with it?
Well, you must spell it with an E. A-N-N-E. Looks so much more distinguished. If you only call me Anne with an E, I shall try and reconcile myself to not being called Cordelia.
Very well then, Anne spelled with an E. Can you tell us how this mistake came to be? We sent word from Mrs. Spencer to bring a boy. Were there no boys at the orphanage?
Oh yes, there were plenty of boys. But Mrs. Spencer said you distinctly wanted a girl. You don't know how delighted I was. I couldn't sleep all night for joy.
I'm going to go put the horse in, Marilla.
Did Mrs. Spencer bring over anybody besides you?
She brought Lily Jones, who is very beautiful with nut brown hair. If I was beautiful with nut brown hair, would you keep me?
No. We want a boy to help Matthew on the farm. A girl is of no use to us. Now, put your hat and bag at the door. I'll prepare some tea.
I can't eat. I'm in the depths of despair.
I guess she's tired, Marilla. Best put her to bed.
Very well. I suppose you have a nightgown? Take your bag upstairs. The first room on the left is where you'll sleep tonight. Well, this is a fine kettle of fish. That girl will have to be sent back to the orphanage.
I suppose so.
You suppose so?
Well, she's a real nice little thing, Marilla. It's a pity to send her back when she's so set on staying here.
Matthew Cuthbert, you don't mean to say we ought to keep her?
Well, no, not exactly. I guess we could hardly be expected to keep her.
I should say, what good would she be to us?
We might be some good to her.
I can see plainly that you want to keep her.
Well, she's a real interesting little thing. You should have heard her talk coming back from the station.
Oh, she can talk all right. I don't want a girl. And even if I did, she isn't the type I'd pick out. There's something I don't understand about her. No, she's got to go back.
I could hire a boy to help me this summer, and she could be company for you.
I'm not suffering for company, Matthew, and I'm not going to keep her.
Well, as you say, Marilla, I'm going to bed.
The next morning, Anne awoke to a cheery sunshine pouring in through the bedroom window. To her delight, a great cherry tree stood right outside her window, close enough to touch. For a moment, she felt a sudden thrill of excitement as she took in the beauty of Green Gables. Then came the horrible remembrance. The Cuthberts didn't want her.
I've invited Mrs. Spencer over this morning to settle this matter. I expect she'll make arrangements to send Anne back to Nova Scotia at once.
Jerry was here this morning. I told him I'd hire him over the summer.
You've cleaned those breakfast dishes, have you?
Yes, Miss Cuthbert.
Did you say your prayers before bed last night, Anne? No? Do you know who God is, Anne?
God is a spirit, infinite, eternal, and unchangeable.
Well, I'm glad to hear you know something of God.
But I don't like him very much.
How can you say that, Anne?
Mrs. Thomas said he gave me red hair on purpose, and I've never cared for him since.
You do be all child. Why don't you go outside and amuse yourself until Mrs. Spencer arrives?
Thank you, Miss Cuthbert.
That child needs somebody to take her under her wing and bring her up, good and proper. What's the matter now?
I don't dare go out and get acquainted with Green Gables when I'm to be torn from it. It'll just make the leaving harder.
Very well then. Why don't you tell me about yourself? And I don't want any of your imaginings. Just stick to plain facts.
Well, there isn't much to tell. But what I imagine about myself is so much more interesting.
Facts only.
Well, I was 11 last March. My parents were high school teachers in Bolingbroke, Nova Scotia. They both died of the fever when I was 3 months old.
And who raised you after that?
Mrs. Thomas, our cleaning lady. I didn't have any living relatives, and nobody wanted me, even then. Seems to be my fate.
How long did you stay with Mrs. Thomas?
Until her husband was killed by a train. Then his mother took them in, but she didn't want me. That's when Mrs. Hammond took me to take care of her 8 children.
Well, how did you end up at the orphanage?
When Mr. Hammond died, they sent me there. I was there for 4 months before Mrs. Spencer came.
And these women, Mrs. Thomas, Mrs. Hammond, good to you?
Oh, I'm sure they meant to be. You see, it's difficult to have a drunken husband, and having twins 3 times in a row is very trying. But I'm sure they meant to be good to me.
Would you like some tea, Anne? That will be Mrs. Spencer. Good morning.
Good morning. You know, Mrs. Peter Blewett?
Yes, we've met.
And how are you, Anne? As well as can be expected, thank you.
Please, have a seat.
Oh, Miss Cuthbert, I'm dreadful sorry for the mistake that was made. We distinctly got the message you wanted a girl.
I suppose the orphanage will take the child back?
That won't be necessary. You see, Mrs. Peter Blewett here has accompanied me, for she has a very large family and finds it difficult to get help. Anne will be the perfect girl for her.
How old are you and what is your full name?
I'm Anne Shirley, and I'm 11 years old.
There's not much to you, but you're wiry, and the wiry ones are the best workers. Well, if I take you, you'll have to be a good girl, smart and respectful, and I'll expect you to earn your keep. There's no doubt about that. Well, Miss Cuthbert, I'll take her off your hands. The baby's awfully fussy, and I'm worn out. What with him and all the other children?
Well, I didn't say we had exactly decided not to keep her. I just wanted to find out how the mistake had occurred. Once we decide, we'll let you know. Will that suit you, Mrs. Blewett?
I suppose it'll have to. Shall we go, Mrs. Spencer?
Well, Miss Cuthbert, I would have loved to stay and try some of your amazing tea, but I just got to go.
Good day.
Good day to you. Good day, Anne.
Good day, Mrs. Spencer. Oh, Miss Cuthbert, did you really mean that you might let me stay at Green Gables?
It isn't decided yet. Mrs. Blewett certainly needs you more than I do.
Oh, I'd rather go back to the orphanage than live with her. She looks exactly like a weasel.
You shouldn't talk that way about a lady and a stranger. Now, hold your tongue and behave yourself. I want you to go upstairs and make that bed you slept in last night.
Oh, I'll do anything you want me to, as long as you'll keep me.
Who is that leaving with Mrs. Spencer just now?
Mrs. Peter Blewett, she'd like to take Anne off our hands to help out with her children.
I wouldn't give a dog I like to that Mrs. Blewett.
I don't fancy her style either, but it's either that or keeping Anne ourselves. And since you want to, I suppose I'm willing.
Well, now Marilla.
I've never brought up a child, but I'll do my best. Heaven knows she needs someone to raise her properly. So as far as I'm concerned, Matthew, she may stay.
I reckoned you'd see it in that light. She's such an interesting little thing.
Now, Matthew, you're not to go interfering with my methods. You leave me to manage her.
You can have your way. Only be as good and kind to her as you can without spoiling her.
Anne quickly settled into life at Green Gables. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Rachel Lynde finally arrived to inspect the Cuthbert orphan. An illness had kept her from visiting, but as soon as she was able, she hurried up to Green Gables, bursting with curiosity.
Marilla! Come in, Rachel. We haven't seen you about lately.
Oh, I've had the flu.
I'm sorry to hear. It isn't quite flu season, is it?
Well, no, but this one put me flat in bed, aching all over. I was just plain miserable. Missed 2 weeks of perfectly fine weather, too. But I hear that's not the only thing I've missed.
Oh?
I've heard some surprising things about you.
I'm just getting over my surprise myself.
Indeed? Well, couldn't you just send her back?
Matthew took a real fancy to her, and I have to say, despite her faults, I like her as well.
Marilla, it's a mighty big responsibility you've taken on, especially when you've never had any experience with children.
Well, I suppose you'd like to meet her. I'll call her in. Anne! Come in, Anne! Anne, remove that dreadful flour concoction immediately. Heaven's child.
Well, they didn't pick you for your looks, that's for sure. She's terrible, skinny, and homely, Marilla. Come here, child, and let me have a look at you. Did anybody ever see such freckles? And hair as red as carrots? Come here, child, I say.
I hate you! I hate you! I hate you! I hate you! How dare you call me skinny and ugly? How dare you say I'm freckled and redheaded? You're a rude, impolite, unfeeling woman.
Anne!
How would you like to be called clumsy and fat? You have hurt me more than anybody ever has, and I'll never forgive you for it. Never, never.
Did anybody ever see such a temper?
Anne, go to your room and stay there.
Well, I don't envy you bringing that up, Marilla.
You shouldn't have commented on her looks, Rachel.
Marilla Cuthbert, are you defending that terrible display of temper?
I'm not defending her, but she's never been taught what is right, and you were too hard on her.
Well, I see I'll have to be careful what I say around here from now on, since the feelings of orphans seem to come first. Her temper matches that hair, I guess. Good day to you, Marilla, and don't expect me to visit here again in a hurry.
Anne? Come down here, Anne. What a way to behave, Anne. Aren't you ashamed of yourself?
She hadn't any right to call me ugly and redheaded.
You hadn't any right to speak in such a fury. I was thoroughly ashamed of you.
Well, when she said those things, something just rose right up and choked me.
Well, you've made a fine exhibition of yourself. Mrs. Lynde will have a nice story to tell about you, and she will tell it. It was dreadful for you to lose your temper like that.
How would you like to be called skinny and ugly?
I'm not defending what she said. Rachel is too outspoken. But you must go over and apologize for your bad behavior and ask for forgiveness.
Oh, I can never do that. You can lock me up in a dark, damp dungeon with toads and snakes and feed me only bread and water, and I shall not complain. Only I can never ask Mrs. Lynde to forgive me.
We're not in the habit of locking people in dungeons, especially as they're rather scarce in Avonlea. But apologize to Mrs. Lynde you will, and you'll stay in your room until you agree to it.
I shall have to stay there forever then.
When Anne didn't turn up for the evening meal, Marilla had to explain her absence to Matthew, who sided with Anne in the matter. So, whenever Marilla went out to go take the cows in from the pasture, Matthew decided to have a talk with Anne.
Anne, could you come down here for a moment? How are you doing, Anne?
Okay, I guess. It's pretty lonesome in my room.
Don't you think you'd better do it and have it over with? Marilla is very determined. Do it right off, I say, and have it over with.
Do you mean apologize to Mrs. Lynde?
Yes, apologize. That's the very word. Just smooth it over, so to speak.
I suppose I could do it to oblige you. I am sorry now, although I wasn't a bit sorry at first. Not a bit. But if you really want me to, I will.
There now. Of course I do. It's terribly lonesome downstairs without you.
I'll tell Marilla I've repented.
That's a good girl. But don't tell Marilla I said anything. I promise not to interfere.
Oh no, wild horses couldn't drag this secret from me. How could wild horses drag a secret from a person anyhow?
Whenever Marilla arrived, Anne announced that she was ready to apologize to Mrs. Lynde. So, directly after dinner, Marilla took Anne straight to Mrs. Lynde's.
Come in. Good evening, Marilla.
Good evening, Rachel. We've come over.
Oh, Mrs. Lynde, I'm so extremely sorry. I could never express all my sorrow, not even if I used up the whole dictionary. I'm a dreadfully wicked and ungrateful girl, and deserve to be cast out by all respectable people forever. What you said about me is true. My hair is red. I am skinny, ugly, and freckled. What I said about you is true too, although I shouldn't have said it. Please say you'll forgive me.
There, child, get up. Of course I forgive you. You mustn't mind me, but I'm such an outspoken person. Perhaps I was a little hard on you earlier. And while your hair is a terrible red, I once knew a girl whose red hair turned a beautiful auburn when she grew up. I wouldn't be surprised if yours did too.
Oh, Mrs. Lynde, you have given me such a beacon of hope. Thank you.
Now, why don't you go out and pick a bouquet of those June lilies in the garden?
Yes, I'd like that.
She's a real odd little thing, but she may turn out all right. On the whole, Marilla, I kind of like her.
think I'll call this next chapter A Solemn Vow and Promise, in which Anne meets her first friend, Diana Barry. Her first real friend, that is, to replace the ones that existed only in Anne's rich imagination.
Well, how do you like them?
I'll imagine that I like them.
I don't want you to imagine you like them. What's wrong with them? They're neat and new.
Yes?
Well then, what's wrong with them?
They're not pretty.
Pretty? Heavens, child. These dresses are sensible and serviceable. After those worn, faded things you've been wearing, I should think you'd be grateful.
Oh, I am grateful, but I'd be ever so much more gratefuler if you made one of them with puff sleeves. Oh, it'd give me such a thrill, Marilla.
Well, you'll have to do without your thrill. I don't have the material to waste on puff sleeves. Now, I need to borrow a pattern from Mrs. Barry. You may come over with me to meet her daughter, Diana.
Oh, Marilla, I'm so frightened.
What is it now?
What if Diana doesn't like me? It'll be the most tragical disappointment of my life.
I'm sure she'll like you well enough. It's her mother you'll have to reckon with. But just be polite and well-behaved, and don't make any of your startling speeches. Now, come along.
Trembling with both fear and excitement, Anne accompanied Marilla to the Barrys' home. While Marilla discussed skirt patterns with Mrs. Barry, Anne wandered out into the garden.
Hello?
Hello?
I'm Aunt Shirley. I've come to live with the Cuthberts.
I know. I've heard of you. In fact, I think everyone in Avonlea has heard of you, thanks to Mrs. Lynde. I'm Diana Barry.
Oh, Diana, do you think you can like me enough to be my bosom friend?
Why, guess so. There are no girls nearby to play with, and my sisters are too young.
Oh, Diana, will you swear to be my best friend forever and ever?
Why, it's dreadfully wicked to swear.
No, not that kind of swearing. There's two kinds, you know.
There are?
Yes, the other kind just means to make a promise.
All right, I don't mind doing that. How does it work?
We should join hands. It ought to be over running water, but we'll just have to imagine.
All right.
I'll say the oath first. I solemnly swear to be faithful to my bosom friend, Diana Barry, as long as the sun and moon shall endure. Now you say it. Just put my name in it.
I solemnly swear to be faithful to my bosom friend, Anne Shirley, as long as the sun and moon shall endure. You're different, Anne, but I think I'm going to like you real well.
For the rest of the summer, Anne and Diana were inseparable, filling their days with endless adventures. But as September approached, Marilla began to grow anxious about sending Anne to school. She was such an odd girl, and Marilla wondered how she would get along with the other kids, and how on earth she'd manage to keep her mouth shut during school hours. When September finally approached, it brought with it new friends, new adventures, and even a few new enemies. I've titled this chapter, A Tempest in the School Teapot.
I guess Gilbert Blythe will be in school today. He's been visiting his cousins in New Brunswick, and he only came home Saturday. He's awfully handsome, Anne, and he teases the girls something terrible.
I'll be sure to watch out for him.
You'll have to. Gilbert's 14, and he's used to being head of the class. You'll have some competition now.
Good. I couldn't really feel proud keeping ahead of 9 and 10-year-olds.
Oh, here's Mr. Phillips now. That's Gilbert Blythe. Don't you think he's handsome?
Ruby Gillis, please bring me your arithmetic work from yesterday.
I think your Gilbert Blythe's handsome, but he's very bold. Did you see what he just did to poor Ruby?
Miss Shirley, Miss Berry, do you plan to join us or simply stare at us from the back of the room? Be seated. Class, copy out your spelling list.
You mean hateful boy! How dare you!
And Shirley, what is the meaning of this?
It's my fault, Miss Phillips. I teased her.
I'm sorry to see a pupil of mine display such a temper. And go and stand in front of the board. And Shirley has a very bad temper, and she must learn to control it. Class, resume your spelling tasks. Oh my gosh.
To disturb your class, but the school inspector's here early and he wishes to speak with you.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Berry. Tell him I'll be right out. Class, you are dismissed for recess. Anyone returning late will be punished.
Temper, and I guess it's true what they say about redheads. Come on, Ruby.
I'm sorry he wrote your name up on the board, Anne.
Come on, Gil. Go on ahead, Charlie. I'll meet you down by the brook.
All right, so don't be long.
I'm awfully sorry I made fun of your hair, Ann. Honest, I am. Please don't be mad for keeps now. All right, then. I'll give you time to cool off.
Oh, Anne, how could you? He tried to apologize.
I'll never forgive Gilbert Blythe. And look, Mr. Phillips spelled my name without an E. Oh, the iron has entered my soul, Diana.
But you mustn't mind Gilbert. He makes fun of all the girls. He laughs at my black hair and calls me a crow. And he's never apologized for it either.
It's not the same thing, Diana. Gilbert Blythe has hurt my feelings excruciatingly.
Let's go join the others for recess, and you can forget all about it.
Poor Anne. She didn't fare any better that afternoon. In fact, things only got worse.
It's Anne Shirley's day for trouble. She'll be in deeper by this afternoon.
Why do you say that, Josie?
She's way out in the spruce groves, daydreaming and picking flowers, and you heard what Mr. Phillips said.
Where's Anne? I thought she was right behind us.
I thought she was too.
I'm afraid she's lost track of time. But Gil and Charlie aren't back yet either.
Oh, Diana, it was so romantic in the groves.
Miss Shirley, it seems you wish to make a spectacle of yourself today, and a tardy one at that. Take those flowers out of your hair and trade places with Charlie Sloan. You may sit with Gilbert Blythe for the remainder of the day.
Do you really mean it, sir?
I assure you I do. Go there now. Class, take out your history books and read chapter 6.
Did you see her face? It's all red and blotchy.
Yeah, but it's not fair. Gil and Charlie were late too. It's not fair.
The afternoon hours dragged on excruciatingly, and by the end of the day, Anne had made a very important decision.
Class, you are dismissed for recess. Class, you're dismissed. Be sure to complete your history lesson for tomorrow.
Come on, Gil. I'll beat you to the top of the lane.
Beat me, Charlie. That'll be the day.
Broken slate enters late. Trouble seems to be Anne's fate.
Leave her be, Josie.
Are you coming, Diana? Anne?
You go ahead. I'll wait with Anne.
I'll expect much better behavior from now on. Good day, Diana.
Good day, Mr. Phillips.
Have they all gone?
Yes, we're the only ones here. What are you packing all those things up for?
I'm not coming back to school anymore.
Oh, Anne, you can't stay home. What will I do without you?
Oh, Diana, I'd do anything in the world for you, but I can't do this, so please don't ask it. My mind is quite made up.
did. Anne learned her lessons at home, did her chores, and played with Diana in the chilly evenings. But whenever she met Gilbert Blythe, she passed him by with icy contempt. Despite his attempts to appease her, and Diana's attempts as peacemaker, Anne had made up her mind to never, ever forgive such an act. It was truly dreadful in her eyes, and she never could get over it. Why would she? There was no point. Besides, such an act, whenever you're just trying to make it by in school, is such a hard thing to get over. It really was dreadful what he did, though. Poor Anne.
Hit that Gilbert Blythe for the rest of my life.
Excuse me, are you the author of this story?
Why, yes, I am.
Oh, why did you have to give me red hair? No one could call me Carrots if I had dark hair like Diana.
Because red hair gives you character, Anne. And speaking of character, you belong back in your story. Alas, Anne was a natural for finding trouble, and her next set of woes had nothing to do with her red hair. After inviting Diana for a tea at the Cuthberts, she accidentally got her friend drunk, mistaking Marilla's currant wine for raspberry cordial. The result? Well, see for yourselves.
Oh, Miss Barry, please wait.
What do you want?
Oh, please forgive me, Miss Barry. I didn't mean to intoxicate Diana. Imagine you were a poor orphan girl with only one friend. Would you intoxicate her on purpose? You must let Diana play with me, or my life will be covered in a dark cloud of woe.
Dark cloud of woe indeed. I don't think you're a fit little girl for my Diana to associate with. Now go home.
Please let me see Diana, just once, to say farewell.
No, she's gone to Carmody with her father.
Oh, I shall never have another friend again. My life's a perfect graveyard of buried hopes.
The next day, Anne announced to Marilla that she was ready to return to school. It was all she had left, she said, after her best friend had been torn from her. At the school playground the next day.
Dear Anne, Mother says I'm not to play with you or talk to you, even in school. It isn't my fault, so please don't be cross with me. I miss you awfully, and I don't like sitting with that horrid Josie Pye. I made you a new bookmark out of red tissue paper. They're very fashionable right now, and only 3 girls know how to make them. When you look at it, remember your true friend, Diana Barry.
My dear Diana, of course I am not cross with you, because you must obey your mother. Our spirits can commune. Our spirits can commune? I shall keep your lovely present forever. Ruby Gillis is a very nice girl to sit with, but she has no imagination. Yours until death do us part, Anne or Cordelia Shirley.
Anne threw herself into her studies, determined not to be outdone by Gilbert Blythe. And while Gilbert was good-natured about such academic rivalry, the same could not be said of Anne.
Oh, that Gilbert Blythe, he shall taste the bitter sting of defeat.
In January of that year, Providence intervened. Anne was given the opportunity to redeem herself in Mrs. Barry's eyes whenever she saved the life of Minnie May, Diana's youngest sister.
Well, Miss Barry, that little redhead girl at the Cuthbert's house is smarter than Macon. She saved your baby's life. It'd been too late by the time I got there.
Oh, I know it, Dr. Blair.
I never seen anything like her. She has an unusual skill and presence of mind. You're very fortunate she was there.
I'm eternally grateful to Anne Shirley. If I had known that Minnie May was so ill, I never would have gone into town.
I never seen anything like her when she's explained the case to me. She knew exactly what to do. Well, Mrs. Barry, since there's no need for me, good day.
Good day, Doctor. I was wrong about that Anne Shirley. It seems I must set things right with her.
Marilla, I've such wonderful news. Tomorrow is Diana's birthday, and she's invited me to a concert.
Well, you can calm down then, because you're not going.
But Marilla...
Concerts are nonsense, and little girls should not be allowed to go to such places.
But it's very respectable, and it's such a special occasion. Diana only has one birthday per year.
You heard what I said, didn't you? Now, take off your coat and boots and head up to bed. It's past 8.
Oh, and Miss Barry said we could stay overnight. We're to stay in the spare room bed. Just think, your little Anne in the spare room, the room set aside for special guests. Such an honor.
It's an honor you'll have to do without. Now go to bed, Anne.
Well, Marilla, I think you'd ought to let Anne go.
You're not to interfere, Matthew.
Well, it isn't interfering to have your own opinion, and my opinion is that you let her go.
You'd let Anne go to the moon if she took the notion. Listen, Matthew, I understand that child's disposition better than you. She'll have her head so filled up with all that nonsense, it will unsettle her for a week.
I think you'd ought to let Anne go.
Very well then, she can go, since nothing else will please you.
Oh, Marilla, please say those blessed words again.
This is Matthew's doing. I wash my hands of it. If you catch pneumonia sleeping in a strange bed, you have him to blame.
Oh, I know I'm such a great child to you, Marilla, but Matthew's a kindred spirit. He understood exactly how I felt about going. It's so wonderful to be understood, Marilla.
Yes, well, I understand that you are supposed to be in bed. Now go.
Good night, Matthew. Good night, Marilla. I shall have such pleasant dreams.
Just as Marilla predicted, Anne's excitement caused her to perform poorly at school the next morning. Gilbert Blythe overtook her in both spelling and math, but by that afternoon, Anne had forgotten all about the morning's humiliations after a delicious tea at Diana's, the sleigh ride to the concert hall, and of course, the entertainment of the concert itself.
Oh, Diana, wasn't the concert a delightful time? How splendid to recite. Do you think we'll ever be asked to recite?
Of course. Gilbert Blythe does it often, and he's only 2 years older. Oh, Anne, how could you pretend not to listen to him this evening?
I wasn't interested.
But you read that library book the whole time he recited. And when he came to the line, there's another, not a sister. He looked straight at you.
Diana, I cannot allow you to speak to me of that person.
Oh, Anne, when are you ever going to forgive and forget?
Listen, I have an idea. Let's race for the bed to see who gets there first.
All right. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oof, merciful goodness.
What was that?
That was my Aunt Josephine. Oh, Anne, I don't know how she came to be there. It's dreadful we jumped upon her like that. But did you ever see anything so funny?
Who's Aunt Josephine?
She's Father's aunt from Charlottetown. She's very old, prim and proper, and she'll scold dreadfully about this. We were expecting her to visit, but not this soon.
Oh dear, will you be in very much trouble?
Oh, she'll be dancing with rage. She'll tell me I'm the worst behaved girl she's ever seen, and that my parents should be ashamed of me. Now I know she'll refuse to pay for my piano lessons.
Well, you can tell her it was my fault.
I can't do that, Aunt Shirley. Besides, it's just as much my fault as it is yours.
Well, then I'll tell her myself.
You can't. She'll eat you alive.
Don't frighten me more than I already am. But it's my fault, and I've got to confess. Fortunately, I've had practice in confessing.
Don't do it. You're walking to the lion's den, Aunt Shirley. Don't do it.
I must, Diana. Hello, Miss Barry?
Who are you?
I'm Aunt Shirley of Green Gables, and I've come to confess.
Confess what?
It's my fault about jumping on you in the bed. I mean, we didn't know you were there, so you must forgive Diana, Miss Barry.
Well, I think Diana did her share of jumping.
But it was all in fun. I think you ought to forgive us now that we've confessed.
Do you know what it's like to wake up from a sound sleep by 2 big girls jumping on you?
I don't know, but I can imagine. I'm sure it was very disturbing.
Disturbing indeed.
But there's our side of it.
What do you mean?
Do you have any imagination, Miss Barry? Put yourself in our place. We didn't know anybody was in the bed, and you nearly scared us to death. Then we couldn't sleep in the spare room bed as promised. It was to be such an honor.
I haven't used my imagination in such a long time. But I dare say your claim to sympathy is just as much as mine. Come, Ann girl, and tell me about yourself.
Oh, Miss Barry, I knew you were a kindred spirit after all, although you don't look much like it. Oh, sorry.
A new teacher arrived at Avonlea School. Miss Stacy quickly won over the hearts of her students with her innovative teaching style. That winter, she organized a school concert, and her students were soon caught up in the busyness and preparations, as well as the excitement. As for Anne, she found herself, once again, trying to convince Marilla of the merits of attending concerts.
Oh, but Marilla, the school Christmas concert is for a worthy cause. It's to help pay for the school flag.
Nonsense. It will just take time away from your lessons.
A flag will help cultivate a spirit of patriotism, Marilla.
She has a point there, Marilla.
Fudge. Having fun is the more likely motivation than patriotism.
Oh, I know the Christmas concert will be a wonderful time. You'll see. Diana's to sing a solo, and I'm in 2 dialogues. I tremble to think of it. But it's a nice, thrilly kind of tremble.
Thrilly trembles? Good heavens. I'll be glad when all this fuss is over and you can settle down. With all that nonsense in your head, there isn't room for anything else.
I have to go upstairs and practice. Oh, one more thing. Don't be alarmed if you hear me groaning. I have to groan heart-rendingly for one of my dialogues. It's hard to get up a good artistic groan, Marilla.
Well, I reckon it'll be a pretty good concert.
Stuff and nonsense.
The next few days, shy Matthew found himself avoiding the sitting room. It was full of Anne's lively school friends who were practicing for the Christmas concert. He couldn't help but notice how plainly Anne was dressed compared to all the other girls who wore bright, fashionable dresses. And he couldn't help but wonder, why did Marilla always keep her so soberly dressed? It was at that moment he decided Anne must have at least one pretty dress. So he summoned all his courage and set out to buy her one.
Hi, Mr. Cuthbert. What can I do for you this evening?
Hello, Miss Harris. Is Mr. Lawson in? I usually deal with him.
Not today, sir. Can I help you?
Do you have any garden rakes?
A garden rake? In the middle of December? I'll go see if we have any in the back. Here you are, Mr. Cuthbert. I found one.
Thank you. Do you have any hayseed?
Hayseed?
Well, yes, hayseed.
We don't keep hayseed in the middle of winter. We don't have any now, being the spring.
Certainly, just as you say. While I'm at it, could I look at some sugar?
White or brown?
Brown.
How much?
How about 20 pounds?
20 pounds. That's a lot of brown sugar, Mr. Cuthbert.
Thank you.
Ah, yes. I'll be right with you.
Well, good evening, Matthew. Planning on doing some gardening?
No, I'm just stocking up for spring. Rachel, could I ask you a special favor?
By all means, Matthew. What is it?
Would you mind picking out, a pretty dress that I can give to Anne for Christmas?
To be sure I will. Have you something particular in mind? No? Well, I'll just go by my own judgment then. I saw some real pretty fabric over at William Blair's store. Perhaps you'd like me to make it up for you too? That way it'll stay a surprise for Anne. I'm happy to do it. I like sewing.
And if you don't mind, could you make the sleeves in that new way they're wearing them?
Puffed sleeves? Of course. Don't worry a speck more about it, Matthew. I'll make it up in the very latest fashion.
I thank you kindly, Rachel.
It'll be a real satisfaction to see that poor child wearing something decent for once. Honestly, the way Marilla dresses her is positively ridiculous. I've begged to tell her so a dozen times. I'm sure Anne must notice the difference between her clothes and the other girls. But to think of Matthew taking note of it, that man is waking up after being asleep for over 60 years.
Christmas morning unveiled a beautiful white world. It had been a mild December, and folks were looking forward to a green Christmas. But just enough snow fell softly in the night to transform Avonlea.
Merry Christmas, Matthew. Merry Christmas, Marilla. I'm so glad it's a white Christmas. Any other kind doesn't seem real, does it? It looks so beautiful outside that Why, Matthew, is this for me?
It's a Christmas present for you, Anne.
Oh, Matthew.
Why, Anne, don't you like it?
Like it? It's perfectly exquisite. And look at those sleeves. To me, this is a happy dream. You even have better taste than Kayla Sutherland.
Let's have tea.
Oh, I can't eat after such an exciting moment. I'd rather feast my eyes on that dress. Oh, Merry Christmas, Diana. Come in. Look at the dress that Matthew got me.
Oh, it's beautiful. Mr. Cuthbert, you have a very good taste.
Matthew, let's take tea in the kitchen and let the girls visit.
This is for you. It's from my Aunt Josephine. Go on, open it.
For the Ann girl. Merry Christmas.
Are you gonna live?
Oh, Diana, this is too much. I must be dreaming.
I call it providential. Now you don't have to borrow Ruby's slippers to play the Fairy Queen tonight at the concert.
Let's go upstairs so I can try on the shoes with the dress.
That evening, Matthew and Marilla joined Anne for her Christmas concert, the first one they had attended in 20 years. Afterwards, they took some time for reflection.
Well, I guess our Anne did as well as any of them at that concert.
Yes, she did. She's a bright girl, Matthew.
Well, I was proud of her. I guess she'll be needing something more than that Avonlea school by and by.
I suppose so. It struck me tonight how she's grown. I suppose we could send her to Queens after a spell, but there's lots of time yet.
Things like that are all the better for thinking over.
Spring brought with it a lull in Anne's usual bouts of trouble. So, by the time late April arrived, Marilla had begun to think things had been a little too quiet.
Anne, where are you? Mercy, Anne, I've been looking everywhere for you. Have you been asleep?
No.
Are you sick then?
No.
Anne Shirley, whatever is the matter, get up this instant.
Look at my hair, Marilla.
Anne, what have you done to your hair? Why, it's green.
I didn't think anything could be worse than red hair, but green hair is 10 times worse.
Anne, tell me how this happened.
I dyed it.
Dyed it? What were you thinking?
I didn't know it was gonna be green. He told me it would turn my hair a dark raven black. How could I doubt him?
Who are you talking about?
The peddler that was here this afternoon. I bought the dye from him.
A peddler? Well, I hope your eyes have been open to where vanity has led you.
What shall I do, Marilla? People have nearly forgotten all my other mistakes, but I'll never live this down. Marilla, I cannot face Josie Pye. Oh, how she'll laugh.
If it won't wash out, there's nothing to do but cut it. Come along, Anne, let's get the scissors.
Oh, I'm the most unhappy girl in all of Prince Edward Island.
filled with fascinating sports around the Berries Pond. One particular afternoon, Anne and her friends decided to recreate a scene from Tennyson's poem, The Lady of Shalott, and Mr. Barry's boat presented itself to be the perfect prop in Anne's dramatic plan.
Of course, you must be the fair lily maid, Anne. I never have the courage to float down there.
Nor I. I can sit in a boat, but to lie there and act like I'm dead, I just can't. I'd die of fright.
Of course, it would be romantic, but I'd never be able to keep still. I'd ruin the effect by popping up every so often to see where I'm going.
But a red-haired person can't be a fair lily maid. Ruby ought to be Elaine.
You know, Anne, your hair's a lot darker since you cut it. Why, I think you could call it auburn instead of red.
Do you really think so, Diana?
Yes, Anne, it's very pretty.
Well, then all right. I'll be Elaine. Ruby will be King Arthur. Jane will be Guinevere. Diana must be Lancelot.
I'm so excited. Yes. And she's gonna float down there. And it'll be
Diana, the shawl.
Oh, she really does look dead. You know, Mrs. Lynde said that play acting is really wicked.
Ruby, you mustn't speak of Mrs. Lynde. It
Sorry.
spoils the effect.
Sorry.
Jane, you arranged this. It's silly for a dead person to talk.
All right. Diana, you may begin.
Sister, farewell forever.
Farewell, sweet sister.
And for goodness sake, smile a little. You know Elaine lay as she smiled. That's better. Now, push off. Let's go on ahead. We'll watch for her as she passes under the bridge.
Oh no! My boat is sinking! Where are my oars? Left on shore. Of course. Oh dear God, please take my boat close to that pile. I'll do the rest. It isn't a flowery prayer, but it's the best I can do under the circumstances. Oh, this isn't the most romantic of situations, is it? But I just nearly escaped a watery grave.
Any sign yet of our lily maid?
Oh no, look!
Oh, Diana, isn't that your father's boat? Why, it's sinking to the bottom!
Oh, girls, what have we done?
We drowned it! Ah!
Where are those girls? Why haven't they come for me? I don't think I can hold on much longer. Please send help. You couldn't have sent anybody else?
And Shirley, how on earth did you get there? What happened, Anne?
We were playing the fair lily maid, and I had to float down to Camelot. Only my boat began to leak. Will you kindly row me to the landing?
Of course, Anne.
I'm much obliged to you.
Anne, wait. I'm awfully sorry I made fun of your hair that time. I only meant it as a joke. Besides, that was so long ago. I think your hair's awfully pretty now. Honest, I do. Can we put this behind us and be friends, please?
No. I will never be friends with you, Gilbert Blythe.
All right, then. I'll never ask you to be friends again, Aunt Shirley. And I don't care either.
Neither do I.
We thought you were drowned. We felt like murderers because we made you be Elaine. Ruby is in hysterics. We had to leave her behind.
Oh, Anne, how did you escape?
I climbed up onto one of the bridge piles. Then Gilbert Blythe came and rescued me.
Why? Gilbert rescued you? That's so romantic, Anne. Of course you'll speak to him after this.
Of course I won't.
But Anne!
Don't even breathe the word romantic. I'm sorry I frightened you. Everything I do gets me or my friends into a scrape. And now I've gone and lost your father's boat, Diana.
Don't worry, Anne. Let's go fetch Ruby. She'll be so relieved to see you alive.
I don't think we'll be allowed to row on the pond anymore.
Once the news of what happened that afternoon reached both the Barry and Cuthbert households, the news was met with both great dismay and concern.
Will you ever have any sense, Anne?
I think my prospects of becoming sensible are brighter than ever.
After nearly drowning yourself, I don't see how.
Well, with each of my mistakes, I've learned a valuable lesson, and today has cured me of being way too romantic. I think you'll see a great improvement in me from now on, Marilla.
Well, I certainly hope so, because next time I'll have to have Mrs. Zempel come hold your hand.
Don't give up all of your romance, Anne. A little of it is a good thing. Not too much, of course, but keep a little of it, Anne. Keep a little of it.
As Anne grew older, life grew calmer around Green Gables. By the time Marilla had realized that Anne had become a young woman, it seemed to her to have happened overnight. Soon, Anne was finished at Avonlea School and was awaiting her entrance exam results to Queens.
Well, Marilla, we missed you at the aid meeting on Thursday.
Matthew had a bad spell with his heart, and I didn't feel I could leave him.
Is he all right?
Oh, yes, he's all right now, but I'm anxious about him. He has these spells more and more often lately.
And how about you? Are you still getting those headaches?
Oh, my headaches come and go. It's my eyes that worry me. The doctor said I must wear these all the time now, and he insists I give up reading and sewing entirely. Otherwise, he says I'll lose my eyesight.
You don't say, Marilla.
At least he feels the glasses will cure my headaches.
Age doesn't always treat us kindly, does it?
Hello, Mrs. Lind.
Hello, Anne dear. Any news of the Queen's entrance results?
Not yet, but soon I hope.
I understand you want to be a teacher. A suitable profession for you, I think.
Thank you, Mrs. Lind. Oh, I think I'll go and help Matthew with those harnesses.
I must say, Anne has turned out a real smart girl. She must be a great help to you, Marilla.
She is. She's steady and reliable now. I thought she'd never get over her feather-brained ways, but she has.
Lawful heart, I never forget that tantrum of hers. That night I said to Thomas, Marilla Cuthbert will rue the day she took that child in. But I was mistaken, and I'm real glad of it.
Why won't you take it easy?
It's only that I'm getting old and I keep forgetting it, Anne.
If I'd been that boy you sent for him, I'd be so much more help now.
I'd rather have you than a dozen boys, Anne. Just mind you that, rather than a dozen boys.
Anne!
Hello, Diana. What do you have there?
Oh, Anne, you've passed the very first. You and Gilbert both, you're tied. But your name is first. Oh, I'm so proud.
Well, I always said it. I knew you could beat them all easy. You're my girl that I'm proud of.
Won't Miss Stacy be so proud? You've all passed. Jane and Ruby did pretty well. They're halfway up. So did Charlie. Josie Pye scraped by with 3 marks to spare. But just wait. She'll put on airs like she was first.
Oh, I'm just dazzled inside. I want to say 100 things, but I can't think of the words. Please excuse us, Matthew. I want to go inside and tell Marilla and Mrs. Lind.
Well, I guess she hasn't been much spoiled, and putting in my occasional 2 cents did no harm after all. She's been a blessing to us. There's never been a greater mistake than what Mrs. Spencer made. No, not a mistake. It was Providence. The Almighty saw we needed her, I reckon.
Over the next few weeks, Green Gables bustled with preparations for Queens. No, heavens, that's not right. Matthew saw to it that Anne had plenty of pretty dresses to wear, and for once Marilla did not object. After a tearful farewell to both Diana and the Cuthberts, Anne found herself at a boarding house near Queens, missing Green Gables.
I won't cry. It's silly and weak. Hello, Josie. I'm glad you came up.
Hi, Anne. Isn't this town great? After pokey old Avonlea, it's a wonder I existed there so long. You've been crying?
Not really.
You shouldn't cry, Anne. It isn't becoming. Your nose and eyes get red and you see it's just all red.
Why, thanks, Josie. That's comforting.
Have you seen our French professor? He's so handsome. His mustache would give you the koalas to the heart. Say, Anne, do you have anything to eat around here? I'm literally starving. That's why I stopped by. Otherwise, I would have gone to the park with Frank Stockley to hear the band play.
I have some Marilla's lemon pound cake.
Oh, so good. You know, Frank Stockley's a real sport. He asked about you today. I said that you're a poor orphan that the Cuthberts took in, and before that, nobody knew much about you. This has the real Avonlea flavor.
Hi, Anne.
Oh, hi, Josie. I really should be studying, but I couldn't settle down tonight.
Oh, Anne, have you been crying? Well, if you have, do own up to it. It will restore some of my self-respect. I was freely shedding tears before Jane showed up. Josie, cake? You'll give me a piece, won't you? Don't be so selfish.
Will you try for the gold medal, Anne?
I'll admit, I've thought of it.
Oh, that reminds me. Word came by that Queens is offering the Avery Scholarship. Frank Stockley told me. His uncle's board of governors, you know.
The Avery Scholarship? Isn't that for the highest mark in English literature?
Yes, and it's worth a lot of money. College tuition for 4 years.
Wow. Anyways, why are we cooped up in here for? Come on, let's go enjoy the town. Let's go hear the band play. Come on, girls.
All right, we might as well. Let's go, girls.
Miss Stacy had encouraged both Anne and Gilbert to take up second-year work at Queens. This meant getting a first-class teacher's license in 1 year instead of 2, but it also meant more challenging work. Anne's heavy workload and occasional visits home soon eased her homesickness. At Queens, her academic rivalry with Gilbert was as intense as ever, but somehow the bitterness had worn off. Before anyone knew it, the term was over and the exam results were posted.
Hooray for Gilbert Blythe, gold medalist!
They won?
I guess there goes your chance of winning the gold medal, Anne. Anyways, girls, I'm gonna see how Frank Stockley did.
Well, I'm happy for Gilbert. He deserved it. Oh, Jane, I haven't the moral courage to look for myself. I'll wait here while you check the results.
3 cheers for Anne Shirley, winner of the Avery Scholarship! Woo!
Oh, won't Matthew and Merle please? I must write to them straight away.
Congratulations.
Following her commencement, Anne was excited to return back to Green Gables for the summer holidays. Marilla and Matthew were pleased to have her back home. Anne's absence had left an empty hole in their lives.
To take first-class license in only 1 year and win the Avery Scholarship. I reckon you're glad we kept her, Marilla?
It's not the first time I've been glad. You do like to rub things in, Matthew Cuthbert. Hello, Diana. Anne's been waiting for you. You can go on up to her room. Come on up, Diana. I'm in my room.
Oh, Anne, it's so good to have you home. You don't know how I missed you.
It's good to be home, Diana.
I suppose you won't be teaching now that you won the Avery.
No, I'm going to Reddit in September. Jane and Ruby are going to teach, though.
And so will Gilbert Blythe. He has to earn his way through college. His father can't afford him to send him. I heard that Gil has applied for the teaching position at Avonlea School. Can you imagine that?
And I'm going over to Mrs. Lynn's. I've just heard some worrisome news about the Abbey Bank, and I wanted to talk with her about it. Oh, I heard it's been shaky. I've heard that too. Matthew's been real worried about it. Every penny of our savings is in that bank. But you girls have a lovely visit and help yourselves to tea and scones downstairs.
Thank you, Miss Cuthbert. Is Matthew not doing well? I know he works just as hard, even though he has a hired man to help him.
No, he's not, Diana. Marilla said he's had some bad spells with his heart, and he pushed himself too hard. Come on, we can chat over tea in the kitchen.
That summer, sorrow's shadow fell upon Green Gables. Matthew Cuthbert never recovered from the news that the Abbey Bank had failed. He died instantly of a heart attack. The news of Matthew's passing spread quickly through Avonlea. Soon, friends and neighbors, young and old, came calling upon errands of kindness. Afterwards, Anne and Marilla found themselves very alone at Green Gables.
Oh, Marilla, what will we do without him?
We've got each other, Anne. I don't know what I would do if you weren't here, if you'd never come. Oh, Anne, I know I've been strict, even harsh with you sometimes, but you mustn't think I didn't love you as well as Matthew did. It's never been easy for me to speak from the heart. I love you as dear as if you were my own flesh and blood. You've been my joy and comfort ever since you came to Green Gables.
I've always known you love me, Marilla. It just wasn't your way to say it.
And now I'll have to think of selling Green Gables.
Sell Green Gables? But Marilla, you can't sell Green Gables.
There's nothing else to be done, Anne. If my eyes were stronger, I might manage with hired help, but now I may lose my sight altogether. And as for savings, every penny of it went with that bank.
But Marilla...
You'll be provided for with that scholarship, Anne. I'm truly thankful for that. And Mrs. Lynde will let me board with her, so I won't be lonely.
Well, you won't have to be lonely. I'll be with you. I'm not going to Redmond.
Not going to Redmond? What do you mean?
I'm not going to take the scholarship. I decided days ago. Surely you don't think I'd leave you alone in all your trouble, after all you've done for me.
I can't have you sacrifice for me, Anne.
Nothing would hurt me more than losing Green Gables. So you see, it's no sacrifice. Mr. Barry has already agreed to rent the farm, so it's not a worry for you. I'm going to teach at Carmody School. Of course, it's not as close to convenient as Avonlea School, but the trustees have already promised it to Gilbert Blythe.
I can't let you give up your ambitions, Anne.
I'm just as ambitious as ever, although I've changed the objects of my ambitions. I'm going to be a good teacher, and I'll study for college at home. After I left Queens, my future stretched out before me in a straight road, only now there's a bend in it. I don't know what lies around the bend, but I'm going to believe that the best does.
Oh, you blessed girl. I feel as if you've given me a new life. Come, sit with me. So, Gilbert Blythe is going to teach too?
Yes.
What a nice-looking fellow he is. I saw him in church last Sunday. He looks a lot like his father did at the same age. John Blythe was a good friend of mine. People called him my beau.
Oh, Marilla, what happened? Why didn't you?
We had a quarrel. I wouldn't forgive him when he asked me to. I was sulky and angry, wanting to punish him first. He never came back. I always felt rather sorry, though. I wished I'd forgiven him when I had the chance.
So you have had a bit of romance in your life, Marilla?
Yes, I suppose you could call it that. You wouldn't think so to look at me, would you? But you can never tell about people from their outsides. It's Mrs. Lynde. Come in, Rachel.
Feels good to sit down. I've been on my feet all day, and I'm plumb tuckered. Well, I came over to give you the news, Anne.
What news?
The trustees at Avonlea have decided to give you the school.
Why, Mrs. Lynde, I thought they promised it to Gilbert Blythe.
So they did. But as soon as Gilbert heard that you'd applied for it, he withdrew his application and suggested they accept yours. Of course, he gave you the school because he knew how much you wanted to stay with Marilla. I must say, it was real kind and thoughtful of him. Self-sacrificing, too. He's now taken a position at White Sands where he'll have to pay his room and board.
Why, I don't feel that I ought to take it. I mean, Gilbert should not have made such a sacrifice for me.
Of course you will. You won't do him any good to refuse it.
Well, excuse me, Mrs. Lynde, Marilla. I need to go out for a bit of a walk. I need time to think.
Well, Marilla, I ought to be going. I just came over to give Anne that news.
I'll walk you part of the way, Rachel. I could use the fresh air.
Wait, Gilbert, I wanted to thank you for giving up school for me. It was really good of you, and I want you to know that I appreciate it.
It wasn't particularly good of me at all, Anne. I was happy to help in some way. Are we going to be friends after this? Have you really forgiven me my old fault?
Gilbert, I forgave you that day by the pond, although I didn't know it then. I confess, I've been sorry ever since.
Well, I'm glad you finally come around. We were meant to be best of friends, Anne. Come, I'll walk you home.
who came up the lane with you, Anne?
Gilbert Blythe.
I didn't think that you and Gilbert were such good friends that you'd stand for half an hour talking at the gate.
We haven't been. We've been good enemies. But we've decided that it's more sensible to be good friends in the future. Were we really half an hour? It only felt like a couple minutes. But you see, Marilla, we had 5 years of lost conversation to catch up on.
That evening, as the twilight and comfort surrounded Green Gables, Anne happily considered that bend in the road and all of its many possibilities.
God's in his heaven, and all is right with the world.
We appreciate you joining us this evening. When we dismiss, the cast will be here to your right. We'd be glad for you to come and greet them. Thank you for coming this evening. She has something to say. Anne seems to always have something to say.
I think this is all.
Oh, testing.
Okay. The 50th class of Tabernacle Christian School would like to thank Pastor Bryant for all the effort he put into this, and all the people who did the painting, and the people who prepared the food. Just thank you all. Thank you for the parents who are willing to work with their children at home. We all thank you. So give us all a round of applause.
Good job. Okay, go on down. Oh. Thank you. All right, let's go down. As you go, if you have a card to still turn out, turn in one of the commitment cards. Mr. O will be there at the door. Good night. You are dismissed.